Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Dear students, Assalamu alaikum and welcome back in lecture number 17. Today we are going to discuss in continuation of Islamic modes of financing, and our today's topic is ijara, which we know as leasing as well. So ijara actually means leasing. So first part we are going to discuss in this lecture, and the second part we will be discussing in our next lecture. So before we go into details of this lecture, let's have a look what did we study in our previous lecture. It was about the diminishing musharaka contract, and we discussed the concept of diminishing musharaka, that it is just like a musharaka contract, like a regular partnership contract, where the partners, two partners, which is normally one of the partners is an Islamic bank and the other one is a client. So when they enter into a partnership with an agreement that one of the partners will be purchasing the share of the other partners, such that the share of purchasing partner increases and share of the selling partner decreases into that particular asset. So, and gradually, the one of the partner, which is normally a client, purchases 100% of the shares of that asset. So in that case, all the returns of that asset now become the sole right of that purchasing partner. So we discussed different features and rules of diminishing musharaka. The features and rules, they were quite similar to our previous lecture, that is musharaka and mudarba. And also we discussed the uses of diminishing musharaka, particularly in house financing, and we discussed the following things, that is purchase of house. In case of purchase of house, the contribution by the client and the bank is determined. Actually, this is a facility for the clients to arrange them with the houses, to provide them houses. So there can be different arrangements like purchase of house. In this case, there will be contribution of capital by the client and the bank or the Islamic financial institution, and both will contribute to purchase a house, which is a completed house. And then the client normally enters into that house as a tenant, and there is a lease agreement between the client and the bank. And the bank's share into that house will determine that how much rent is going to be paid to the bank, and that is the income of the bank against the investment made into that house. And similarly, construction of house, where there can be two situations. One is that the plot or a piece of land is already there with the client, and the client wants to construct a house over that, and the bank facilitates the client to construct that house and provides the capital. Now, the value of the plot is the contribution by the client, and the monetary sources contributed by the bank are the contribution by the bank. And this will determine the proportionate share of the bank and the client into that particular asset. And the other situation is that the plot or piece of land to be purchased, and then there is construction required. So in both cases, contribution will be determined, will be collected by both partners, and gradually one of the partner, that is the client, will purchase the share of the bank, and the bank's share will be divided into number of units. Suppose the bank's share are divided into 10 units. So, and then the intervals will also be determined, that after every month or every 3 months, every 6 months or every year, the client will be purchasing the share of the bank in the form of units. Those units will be offered to the client, and client will make an offer for a price, will price that unit, and if the bank agrees, the bank will sell that unit to the client. And then the third situation is renovation of house. So house is already there and it needs renovation. So the renovation capital is provided by the bank. Now the market value or the fair value of that asset, that house, is the contribution by the client, and the renovation expenses are the contribution by the bank. So there might be the contribution in the ratio of 10 to 90 or maybe 20 to 80 as is the situation. And again, the client will be the user of that house, or any third party can also be user of that house, and the rent will be determined, and the bank will charge, or the share of the bank will be according to the proportion of the bank's ownership into that asset. And balance transfer facility, it was discussed in our previous lecture that there are certain customers who have financing from the conventional banking system, and they are paying the principal amount along with the interest on that. So because interest is not allowed under Islamic financial system, so the Islamic banks, they provide this facility to the clients that if they are engaged into such transaction with the conventional banking system, and they want to quit that system and they want to come to the Islamic banks, so the Islamic bank will make payment of the balance which is due to that conventional bank. Now, the portion which has been paid by the client is the contribution of the client, and the portion of the remaining balance which is paid by the Islamic bank is the contribution of the Islamic bank. Now they become partners into that house with their proportionate contributions, and accordingly the rent will be determined, and the bank will charge or will receive the proportionate rental, and this will be the income of the Islamic bank against the investment. Now let me remind you about the little more detail about the diminishing musharaka, that there are two types of musharakas, that is two types of diminishing musharaka arrangements, that is shirkatul aqd, that is a joint venture for a particular venture where the client requires financing for a particular business venture. For example, to establish a shop to sell the ready-made garments, and in that case contribution by the bank and the client will be their proportionate contributions, and this will determine their share in the income of that bank, in the income of that particular business venture. And the client will promise into the agreement, this will be mentioned, that client will be purchasing the number of units which is the ownership of the bank, and accordingly the share of client will keep on increasing. But here we have a distinction that the unit price will be determined in the market. In case of joint venture, the unit price will be determined on the market value basis, whereas in case of joint ownership, where the bank and the client, they jointly own an asset, maybe they purchase a piece of land, a building or a machinery, so, and with an intention to earn rent on it or to use it for any other purpose. But this is a case of joint ownership. So in that case, the units of ownership by the bank will be, the price of those units will be determined in advance, and it will be mentioned into the contract. So the difference here is that in case of joint ownership, the unit price is based on the market value. For example, the bank's ownership is 100,000 and it is divided into 10 equal units of 10,000 each, but that one unit which is at the time of contract, its value is 10,000, but at the time of purchase by the client, its market price might be equal to 15,000. So now the client will purchase that unit for 15,000, and then at the time of next unit purchase, the unit price in the market, it might be less than 10,000, that is the book value, so it may be 9,000. So the market value will be the price of that unit, whereas in case of joint ownership, for example, in the case of a house or in case of owning any property like piece of land or building, so there the units of ownership by the bank, they are determined, and it is based on, its value is based on the book value. For example, the bank's contribution is 100,000 and it is divided into 10 equal units of 10,000 each. Now this is the value, this is the unit price which the bank is going to receive by the client. And now we are going to discuss the learning outcome of this lecture. That is, after this lecture you should be able to understand the background of an ijara contract, that is what is an ijara contract and the applications of ijara contract, particularly in the property financing, vehicle financing, project financing, personal financing and structured products. But normally you will see vehicle financing quite often in the operations of Islamic banks. You might have heard the word car ijara, and this is the most practiced commodity or the most popular product among the Islamic banks. And the definition and types of ijara, you will be able to understand the definition and different types of ijara, and what is the Sharia legitimacy of ijara contract. What does Quran and Hadith and the scholars they say about the ijara contract, and also the features of ijara contract. There are different features like usufruct and services. Usufruct, they are actually the beneficial use. For example, if you rent a car, you can use that car for your benefit. If you rent a machinery, you can use that machinery for your benefit. So any asset which can be used and it has some beneficial use, those beneficial use, we have the terminology of usufruct. And then asset for ijara, and then you will be able to understand the ownership rights and liabilities in case of ijara, and utilization of leased assets, how they should be utilized, and the lease period, what is the lease period and how we are going to determine the lease period, and the rental amount and payment. What will be the rental amount, how it will be determined, and what will be the mode of payment, a cash, a kind, or service. And then you will be able to understand the situation of default and compensation in an ijara contract, and also the nature of promise in ijara arrangement. What are the different types of promises that are introduced into this ijara contract, and also the cancellation of ijara contract, the situations where the ijara contract is terminated, and concept of selling of the leased assets, and at the end of the lease period, what we are going to do with those assets. Should they be sold to the client or there should be some other arrangements? And also the concept of takaful for ijara assets, like those assets which are being the subject matter of the ijara contract, how they are going to be protected from different damages, from losses. There are certain arrangements, and under conventional economic system we have the arrangement of insurance, whereas the substitute in Islamic financial system we have the concept of takaful, and we will be discussing the concept of takaful in our forthcoming lectures. So takaful is a substitute of an insurance arrangement. So first of all, the background, ijara or lease is a form of contract which is permissible in Islamic financial system. So ijara or lease, conventionally we know the word lease, and it is almost similar with the ijara, and it is permissible under the Islamic financial system. Generally, it is a contract of exchange of counter values between usufruct and lease payment or rental rates. So we have the usufruct of the assets, and against that we have certain fee or price for those usufructs. For example, if you rent or if you lease a car and you make a payment against that, so for that beneficial use of that asset, you have a price for that service. So it is an exchange of values in the form of usufruct and fee for that, or price for that, and that fee or price we know it as rental. And then a substitute of ownership of the asset. There are certain situations where the individuals, they don't want to own any asset because they feel the risks of owning the asset is higher. For example, if you are living at a place where the car theft is quite often, so in that case you might prefer not to purchase a car and not to keep it with you. Rather, whenever you want to use a car, you hire that car. So depending upon the situation, people might not want to own any asset, and they want to use that asset. So lease or ijara arrangement is a substitute for that. And like other contracts, an ijara contract has to fulfill all the conditions of a valid contract stipulated by Sharia. So the ijara contract should also fulfill all the requirements to be a halal or a valid contract. And the uses or the usufruct of the assets, they should also be halal. They should not be used for anything illegal or which are not allowed under Islamic economic system. They might be allowed under the conventional system, but they may not be allowed under the Islamic economic system. For example, if the subject matter of lease is a transportation vehicle like a truck, so if that truck is going to be used to transport the liquor or the alcoholic drinks, so in that case, with this objective, to rent out a truck or to lease a truck is not allowed under Islamic economic system. So the conditions for a valid contract under the Sharia should be followed. Ijara or lease contract has emerged as one of the popular modes of financing, and it has variety of applications. For example, we have property financing, where we studied the case of diminishing musharaka, where the partners, they purchase an asset, particularly a house, and then one of the partners, that is the client, purchases the shares of the Islamic financial institution, and there is a lease agreement between them at that time. So that is an ijara agreement between the client and the bank, when the client is using that house, when the client is a tenant of that house, and the client leases that house. So the bank's income is determined against the contribution of the capital. And also the vehicle financing, what we know as car ijara. If you go to any of the websites of an Islamic bank, you will see the word car ijara, and this is one of the popular modes of financing. And also project financing, which is not very common among the Islamic banks, and personal financing, which is again not very much common in the Islamic banks. And the structured products, the ijara contract can be structured against different situations, that whatever you need, it can be tailored according to your need. But generally, you will see the ijara contract in the form of property financing and vehicle financing. So the nature here is different. In case of property financing, there is another arrangement, that is diminishing musharaka contract, and under the diminishing musharaka contract we have a lease agreement or an ijara agreement between the client and the Islamic financial institution. Whereas in case of vehicle financing, the Islamic financial institution charges a rental amount every month, and there is an advance against that agreement. And then at the end of that lease period, that asset is offered to that particular client to purchase. So there might be different arrangements, that client might purchase that asset against the advance payment made in the beginning or at the time of the contract, or the Islamic financial institution gift it to the client. But there will be no such stipulation, no such condition in the agreement that this particular asset, which is the subject matter of an ijara contract, shall be given to that user or to that client. So for one item, for one subject matter, there cannot be two contracts under the Islamic financial system. So the second contract, which is not a contract, that will be a promise. It can be a promise from the bank, or it can be a promise from the client, that the bank is going to sell that asset to the client, or the client is going to purchase that asset from the bank. So there will be two different things, that is, one is ijara agreement and the other one is the promise by the bank or vice versa from the client. Now the definition of ijara, its literal meaning is to rent or lease something. As I told you earlier, ijara is the substitute of leasing, and in its technical sense the term ijara has two different connotations as follows. So as I mentioned earlier, that at the end of the lease period there can be different arrangements, like the asset goes back to the lessor, for example the Islamic financial institution, or the asset is purchased by the client. So the contract ends up in the form of ownership of that asset by the client. So these are two different arrangements. For example, a hire contract to employ the services of a person with wages given to him or her as a consideration for his or her hired services. So one of the arrangements is that for any services you provide and you charge any salary, any wage, any fee, that is also one kind of ijara. And then a lease contract to transfer the usufruct of a particular property to another person in exchange for a rent from the client. So in the second case, which is the most common situation, that is, there is a subject matter of that contract, there is one client, and client is going to use that asset, going to lease that asset, and then after the usage or after the leased period, what is the future of that asset? What is the salvage value, and how the bank or the Islamic financial institution is going to dispose of that asset? So there can be different arrangements. One is that ijara muntahiya bit tamlik, that is a lease contract which ends up with the transfer of the legal title of the leased asset to the lessee, and it can be in the form of a sale or a gift of the asset to the lessee. So there can be two arrangements, as I told you earlier, that is there is a sale of asset at the end of the contract period, or the Islamic financial institution gift that asset to the client. So it means the contract finishes with the ownership of the client. And then ijara summa al-bay, that is ijara and then trade, is a form of ijara muntahiya bit tamlik, where the sale of asset to the lessee is executed at the completion of the lease period. So one arrangement is that asset is sold or gifted, and the other arrangement is that ijara and then it is sold. It is sold to any third party, or it may be sold to the same client as well. Like every contract, ijara contract should also be Sharia compliant, and it should have some legitimacy from Quran, Sunnah, and also from the ijma or consensus of the Sharia scholars. So let's see how Quran refers the word ijara or hiring. For example, while describing the story of Musa alayhi salam being hired for a certain period of time for a specific task as a compensation for outstanding dowry for his marriage, and in this regard dowry would mean the haq meher, what we know in Urdu, haq meher. And Quran says, and said one of them, that there were two daughters of that pious person, and one of them she said to her father that, "O my father, hire him. Verily the best of men for you to hire is the strong, the trustworthy." He said, "I intend to wed one of these two daughters of mine to you on condition that you serve me for 8 years. But if you complete 10 years, it will be a favor from you, but I intend not to place you under a difficulty. If Allah will, you will find me one of the righteous." So you see the word hire. Hiring of people for their services is allowed under Islamic economic system, and the tenure was also mentioned here, 8 years, or it was an option for Musa alayhi salam to complete 10 years. And this verse has been mentioned in Quran in Surah number 28, ayah number 267. So we have the legitimacy from Quran that against the services, the people can be hired for certain reward. And in a hadith, in the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, not only hiring but also leasing of asset has been mentioned. For example, it is mentioned in Sunan Ibn Majah, one of the famous hadith, that in Urdu we also know that मजदूर को उसका पसीना खुश्क होने से पहले उसकी मजदूरी अदा की जाए. So Prophet ﷺ said, "Pay the hired worker his wages before his sweat dries off." And then it means that we can hire the services of the labor against a reward, or against a fee, a salary, or wage. And then Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, "He who hires a person should inform him of his fee." And then another thing has been endorsed into that agreement, that the fee of that worker should be announced at the time of contract. When you hire any person, you should tell him or her that this is going to be your fee or salary. And then in a hadith reported in Sahih al-Bukhari, Abdullah ibn Umar narrates, Allah's apostle gave the land of Khaybar to the Jews to work on and cultivate and take half of its yield. Ibn Umar added, the land was used to be rented for a certain portion of its yield. So the land was leased to the Jews against a certain portion of its yield. So the hiring of services and leasing of assets, it has been mentioned in hadith, And the Muslim jurists, the scholars, they have also consensus that ijara is allowed under Islamic financial system. Ijara was unanimously approved by the companions of Prophet ﷺ and prominent jurists of the recognized school of Islamic law. They view that the need to utilize the usufruct of different articles, goods and services is similar to the need to utilize the articles. When the contract of sale of such goods and services is permitted, the lease of its usufruct shall also be permitted on the ground of public interest and needs. Public interest, मसलहा, मसलहत के तहत, जिसको हम उर्दू में जिसके लिए हम वर्ड यूज करते हैं मसलहत अंदेशी. So, for maslaha, the lease or the selling of usufruct is allowed under the Islamic financial system. Now there are different features of ijara contract, and we are going to discuss them. Probably we are going to discuss until point number 3 in this lecture, and from 4th, 5th and 6th we are going to discuss them in our next lecture. So there are different features like usufruct and services, asset for ijara, what are the assets that qualify for the ijara agreement, and then ownership rights and liabilities, and then utilization of leased assets, how the assets are going to be utilized. As I mentioned earlier, that utilization should also qualify to be a halal activity. And then the lease period, the time period involved for that ijara contract should also be clearly mentioned into the contract, and the rental amount and its payment. What will be the rental amount and how it is going to be paid. So these are different features we will be discussing, probably half of them in this lecture. First of all, usufruct and the services. So as I mentioned earlier, the beneficial use of any asset is the usufruct. So ijara applies to both hire of services and lease of a property for wages, fee and rental respectively. And ijara may be in the form of hiring of services or labor, such as hiring the services of an engineer, a carpenter or a tailor to undertake a specific task in exchange of consideration in the form of fee or wages for the services rendered. So any kind of services we enjoy by the professionals or from labor or from any third party, and against those services we pay a price. So that is allowed, and these are the usufructs and their rewards. So the services, they can also be the subject matter of the ijara contract, and the property, that can also be subject matter of an ijara contract. For the services we pay a fee or wages, and for the property, when it becomes the subject matter of an ijara contract, we have a rental payment. An example of hiring of services is that an Islamic financial institution provides online payment services based on standing instructions by the customer of the Islamic financial institution. The customer specifies the third party account as well as the amount and frequency of payment to be made. Upon the engagement, direct debit payments are made from the customer's account, and the bank earns fee from such services. We have lot of examples, particularly when we have such an advancement in the banking sector. For example, for the utility bills, we can assign the task to the banks that they would collect the utility bill, and then they will debit that particular amount from the client's account, and they will credit that particular account of the utility providing corporation. For example, the WAPDA, the WASA, or any organization, the PTCL, we have different utility bills from different organizations, and those organizations, they have their relevant accounts. So our banks, they can transfer the amounts from our accounts by debiting our account, and they will credit the accounts of those utility providing companies. So against this service, the bank will charge a fee. So this service is again a subject matter of an ijara contract. So ijara can be for the services and for the assets. Similarly, the nature of the service can be different. For example, if you get an admission into any institution to study, to complete your studies, so that educational service is provided by that educational institution, and against that service you make a payment of fee. So this is the same thing. Ijara may be in the form of financing for the services rendered by the service provider. These services are offered in exchange of fee payments such as educational services, health services, and tourism services. So this illustration will further illustrate, and it will make our concept more clear, that a student received an offer from an educational institution to enroll for a 4-year academic program valued at 100,000 rupees with fee payable at rupees 25,000 per annum. So that fee of 25,000 is going to be paid for 4 years, so it will make total of 100,000 rupees. The student requested the financing from the Islamic financial institution, which leased the academic program from the education institution, and subsequently subleased it to the student at rupees 20,000 per annum, payable over a period of 5 years. So this is a kind of virtuous act by the Islamic financial institution, a welfare act, that they purchases the services of the financial institution and then they sublease it, then they sell it to the student. So here the financing required for that financial institution, for that academic institution, was 100,000 rupees, and the Islamic financial institution agreed to pay for that, and then on a relaxed term, the financial institution, the Islamic financial institution, is going to receive those 100,000 rupees instead of 4 years, is going to receive over a period of 5 years. So instead of receiving 25,000 per annum, the Islamic financial institution is going to receive 20,000 per annum for the next 5 years. So this is the leasing of the services and then subleasing of the services to the client. In previous slides, we discussed the leasing of the services. But when the subject matter is a tangible asset, it can be any property. So in that case, the reward for the usufruct or for the beneficial use of that particular property is the rental amount. So in that case, the rental period should be specific, and the reward or the rental amount against the use of that asset should also be specific and determined clearly and mentioned clearly into the contract of ijara. For example, an Islamic bank is approached by a corporate customer to finance an operating lease of equipment. The bank appoints the customer as an agent to obtain quotation from the purchase price for the purchase price of the equipment at market value or a fair value at 50,000 rupees. So the Islamic financial institution agrees to finance 50,000 rupees. So prior to the purchase of the equipment by the bank secured an undertaking from the customer to lease the equipment from the bank. So now, in this situation, the client needs an asset for his or her personal use, maybe in the business use or for any reason, and the client approaches the Islamic financial institution, and the Islamic financial institution agrees, as we discussed in the case of Murabha, that Islamic financial institution appoints the client as an agent to find out the asset and then to facilitate the purchase of that asset. So likewise, in an ijara contract also, when the client identifies a need of particular asset and Islamic financial institution appoints the customer as an agent, and then the customer would find that asset and will purchase that asset, but prior to that, Islamic financial institution will make it sure that the client is going to lease that asset as well. And then the bank purchases the equipment. So after the identification of the asset by the client, bank will purchase that asset and leases the asset to the customer for a specified period with either a fixed or a renewable rental payment of 15,000 for 5 years. So for an asset which was purchased at 50,000 rupees, the rental amount which is going to be charged for 5 years, the time period of lease is 5 years, and the reward or the price of that use is 15,000 and per annum, and the rental income is reflective of the usage of the equipment during the specific period. And at the end of the financing period, the asset can be disposed at market value to a third party. So now One of the arrangement is that after the client has used the asset for 5 years as per the Ijara agreement, now that asset can be disposed of at its market value into the market to any third party. And if the customer intends to purchase the equipment, a purchase option is executed as per the lease agreement. So this can be one of the option into the agreement, that after the asset has been utilized for that lease period, that asset will be offered to the client for sale. Instead of offering it to any third party, first of all it will be offered to the client, and if the client agrees to purchase that, client will make an offer and will purchase it. Otherwise, that asset will be sold into the market at its market value. For example, at the end of the third year, the equipment could be sold to the customer at the price of the remaining outstanding lease payment of rupees 30,000. And this is also possible that during the lease period, at any time when the client wants to purchase that asset, the remaining outstanding rental payments can be the price of that asset. So in this case also, the outstanding rental for the remaining 2 years, they were 30,000, and against that 30,000 rupees, the client can purchase that asset. So Islamic financial institution, they have the options, the two options in an Ijara contract, that is operating lease and the structured operating lease, that is lease with transfer of ownership to the lessee, which is also known as Ijara Muntahiya bit Tamliq, that is an Ijara agreement which ends up with the ownership of the client for that particular asset. For example, the asset was used for the set time period, and then at the end that asset was gifted or sold to that client. And the subject matter of Ijara may be an existing usufruct as well as usufruct to be established in the future where the asset is delivered in future. For example, the asset is already in existence and it can be leased out. And there is another possibility that asset will be created or manufactured against a promise or an agreement with the client. For example, the client requires a building to be used as a warehouse or as an office. So the client agrees or promises that when the building is ready, the client will lease that building. So in that case, building will be prepared according to the requirement of the client, and then the client will shift into the building. It might use it as an office or as a warehouse as per the requirement, and it will be mentioned into the Ijara agreement. So the asset might be in existence, or it might be manufactured or prepared later on. And the rental amount received by financier shall be earned only upon effective delivery of the usufruct of the leased asset to the lessee. So there can be a situation that at the time of agreement, the asset is not into existence, but at that time, the client might deposit certain amount as a security deposit or as an advance lease payment. So in that case, that advance payment will be adjusted after the asset has been handed over, and it can be used positively by the client. So here is an illustration of effective delivery of leased asset, that a property development company seeks financing to lease an equipment from an Islamic financial institution. The equipment needs to be installed at the company's construction site prior to the lease as specified in the Ijara agreement. And the Islamic financial institution acquired the equipment and leased the asset to the company without installation. Although the Islamic financial institution had purchased the equipment to lease to the company, they have no capacity to lease the equipment as the equipment is not installed. Hence, effectively, the lease agreement is not effective until usufruct is established upon installation. So in this case, when the equipment will be installed and then it can be used, the beneficial use is only possible when the equipment has been installed. Although the lease agreement has been signed before the installation of that equipment, but when the usufruct starts, only then the fee for that or the rental amount for that will be paid. and the rent will be due only after the usufruct. So if there are any advances paid by the client to the lessor, so those will be utilized only after the usufruct starts for that asset. And the rental amount received in advance by financier shall be refunded to the lessee if the asset cannot be effectively delivered to the lessee. For example, in our previous illustration, when the equipment has to be installed and it could not be installed because of any reason, so in that case, if there were any advances with the lessor, so those advances should be paid back to the lessee. And in relation to the above point, upon completion of the leased asset under a forward lease and prior to enjoyment of the usufruct, the lessee may purchase the leased asset and the forward rental amount may be treated as part of the selling price. So let's consider the same illustration as we discussed in the previous slide, that the Islamic financial institution as per Ijara agreement purchased an equipment to install at the place of the client. And before the usufruct could start, the client decided to purchase that equipment from the Islamic financial institution. So if the client has made payments in case of any advance payments, so those advance payments can be settled into the price of that equipment. Under most circumstances, leased assets, they are tangible assets, but there are some assets which are not tangible, but still they can be leased out. For example, the trademarks, the patents, and any other form of intellectual property. The tangible assets shall not be perishable. And another condition for tangible assets is that it should not be perishable. For example, the vegetables, they are perishable, or any asset which is during the process of using it is consumed. For example, the raw materials, they cannot be used as the subject matter of an Ijara agreement, and the tangible assets may be movable or immovable. It might be installed at particular place, or it might be in the form of any machinery, or it may be a truck, a bus, a car, any asset which is movable, or it may not be movable. For example, a fast food operator seeks financing from an Islamic financial institution for the food business comprising stock of food, the store, and the brand name of the principal operator, maybe from KFC, from McDonald's, and a lease contract drawn between the Islamic financial institution and the customer applies only to the store and brand name. Now you can see the stock of food is perishable. It is not something which is durable and it has some beneficial use. Rather, it is going to be consumed. So anything which is going to be consumed cannot be part of the Ijara agreement. So in this case, store and the brand name can be the subject matter of an Ijara agreement. The stock of food doesn't qualify for lease as it is perishable and consumable. And the leased asset shall be specified and be clearly identified by the contracting parties. For example, Company A enters into an Ijara agreement to lease a shop in Blue Area, Islamabad. Now, Blue Area, Islamabad is a big market. The lease contract stipulated all the details of the agreement such as the rental, the location is mentioned as a place in Blue Area, but it has not been mentioned that which shop. The agreement doesn't pinpoint the address of a particular shop, and rather in its broader term it says a shop in Blue Area. So except that it did not specify the exact location of the shop within Blue Area, which is the subject matter of the agreement, such agreement is deemed to be void as the subject matter is not clearly identified in the lease contract. So the subject matter is not clearly identified, so the contract is not a valid contract. And where the asset is held by a partnership, each partner shall jointly own the asset and have the right to benefit from the rental income of the leased asset based on the proportionate share in the asset. So the ideal example is the construction of house or purchase of house in case of diminishing musharaka, where the asset is owned by the client and the Islamic financial institution collectively. So both have a share into that, and both of them they take returns proportionate to their contribution. For example, if their ownership was 40% by the Islamic financial institution and 60% by the client, and if it has a return as a rental income of 10,000, so both of them will share it according to their contribution. So 4,000 as 40% of the return would go to the bank, and 6,000 as the contribution by the client will be according to the proportion of ownership of the client. And client may jointly with an Islamic financial institution acquire an asset from a third party. The client subsequently leased the asset from the Islamic financial institution. In such an agreement, the rental payment to the Islamic financial institution shall be proportionate to the Islamic financial institution's ownership into the assets. So again, this is the exact example of diminishing musharaka contract, where the Islamic financial institution and the client, they purchase a house or any asset, and then the client leases the share of that bank or the Islamic financial institution, and the share of the Islamic financial institution into the total asset will be determined according to the contribution. So this is exactly the same example. If the bank's share is 40%, so the client will make payment of 4,000 as a rental income for the bank. So this will be an expense, a rent expense by the client, and a rental income by the Islamic financial institution. So this is an illustration of jointly owned asset leased to one of the partners. An Islamic bank and a trading company jointly purchase a shop from a third party. The bank signs an annually renewable tenancy agreement with the trading company, and in a separate contract, the trading company agrees to purchase a share of the asset annually at a certain market price. So this is a case of diminishing musharaka contract, where the share of the bank is going to be purchased by the other partner. The purchase is conducted during the same period of the tenancy. During the lease period, the rental amount declines according to the asset share owned by the bank. At the end of the lease period, the asset is fully owned by the trading company. So when the asset has been fully transferred to the trading company, that is one of the partner, in that case, when the ownership proportion reaches to the 100% for the client and 0% for the bank, so in this situation, there will be no rent for the bank. So in that case, 100% of the rent will go to the client. And if the client is user by himself or herself, so in that case, there will be no rental expense for the client. As we are discussing what are the assets and how they are dealt in an ijara agreement, so the lessor shall be liable for all expenses incurred in acquiring the leased asset, and the acquisition cost may also be considered while determining the rental rate. For example, if the assets nature they are same, but the acquisition cost they are different. Like there is a car, suppose 2008 model, it has a price, suppose 1 million rupees, and there is a car of 2013 model, its price is 2 million. So both are cars, but the cost of the cars is different. So in this case, where the cost of one of the car is lesser, that is acquisition cost is quite less in this case of 2008 model car, and the 2013 model car has a higher price, so the rental charges will be different accordingly. Although they are both cars, but according to their price and according to the acquisition cost of those assets, the price, the rental income or the rental charges will be different. And another example would be that if the Islamic financial institution finances a house, suppose out of Islamabad and inside Islamabad, so the price of the house will be quite different. So inside Islamabad, the rental will be different, the rent charges will be different, and outside Islamabad, the rent charges will be different. Suppose the size of the house is same, but the rental charges, they are quite different. Although the nature of asset or the nature of the property is different, but the acquisition cost will determine how much rent is going to be charged for that particular asset. And the nature of asset should be something which qualifies for the ijara agreement. For example, the shares or the stocks of any company, they don't qualify as an asset of ijara agreement. So as per ijara agreement, the leased asset should be the lessor's property, though the registration of the title may be in the name of the lessee. So when the lessee as a client approaches the Islamic financial institution and identifies an asset for an ijara agreement, so in that case, Islamic financial institution might appoint the client as an agent, and also the registration of that asset might be in the name of that client. But there should be a condition that even under this arrangement, when the title is with the lessee, but the owner of that asset or the property is of the Islamic financial institution. So being an owner, if the Islamic financial institution assumes all the responsibilities, that is the ownership responsibilities, the risks of that asset, all the losses or damages which can take place without any negligence of the client or the user or the tenant, so all the risks, they are borne by the Islamic financial institution. Only then the asset can be in the name of the registration of that leased asset can be in the name of the lessee. And there are certain arrangements that the financier may purchase the asset from the client and then again lease that asset to the same client. So this is an arrangement where the client or any organization or any institution, they need some liquidity, but they don't have liquidity or the assets with them. So they can sell their asset to the Islamic financial institution, and then they can use or they can lease the same asset from that Islamic financial institution against a rental payment. So they can meet their liquidity requirement such that they can sell their asset to the client and still they are using the same asset. So this is a facility for the people, for the business people, for the businesses, that they can sell the same asset and they can take it back as a leased asset. And a customer's share in the asset jointly owned with the IFI may be pledged to the Islamic financial institution as security. So when the Islamic financial institution and the client, they jointly own any asset, for example, in case of diminishing Sharka contract of house financing, so the share of the client can be taken as a security by the bank against any risk of default by the client. And the third feature is ownership rights and liabilities. So there are certain rights being an owner and there are certain liabilities being an owner. And the rights and liabilities arising from the ownership of the leased asset shall be with the lessor, while the rights and liabilities arising from the use of that leased assets shall be with the lessee. So being the owner and being the user, there are rights and liabilities of the lessor and the lessee. So the lessor have the ownership rights and all the risks being owner are with the Islamic financial institution as a lessor, and being a user of that asset, all the risks and liabilities being a user, they are with the lessee or the client. And the leased asset in the lessee's actual or constructive possession shall be a form of trust. So when the asset has been given to the client for use, for beneficial use, now there is a trust. So the client is a trustee by the bank to use that particular asset. And this is an amana for the client. And there shall not be compensation by the lessee to the lessor in case of impairment of the asset value, except when such impairment is caused due to the negligence or misconduct of the lessee. For example, during the normal course of business, an asset is used carefully and without any negligence, without any misconduct. So in that case, if any loss, any impairment to the asset's value, if it happens, then this is the loss of the owner, that is the lessor. And any loss or impairment relating to a leased asset shall be borne by the lessor throughout the leased period due to factors not caused by negligence or misconduct of the lessee. If the lessee is using the asset carefully and it is maintaining the asset as per agreement or as per the nature of that asset, and then if something happens, if any disaster happens, if there is any natural disaster like floods, earthquakes, tsunami, whatever, so in that case, or there may be some accident, So that loss is going to be borne by the lessor, being the owner of that asset. And in a situation where the usufruct of the leased asset is impaired wholly or partially as a result of the lessee's misconduct or negligence, the lessee shall be responsible for restoring the usufruct and bear such cost, including the rental charges payable during the restoration period. And when the lessee was using the asset and it was not a careful use of that asset, so because of that negligence, if any capital impairment or any loss happens to that particular asset, so the lessee is responsible to compensate for those losses. And during the restoration of the usufruct, that is, to repair the asset such that it can be used again for beneficially, so to restore its usufruct, the cost will be borne by the lessee, and during that time period, rental income will not stop for the Islamic financial institution. The lessee shall be paying the rental charges to the Islamic financial institution while it is not being used, but it is being repaired. So the Islamic financial institution is not concerned that the asset is being used or not, but the rents should be due, or the rents are due to the Islamic financial institution while the asset is in the possession of the lessee. This illustration will further explain the restoration of usufruct by the lessee, that a new truck is leased by an Islamic bank to a freight company for 2 years. During the lease period, excessive load was carried that damaged the suspension of the vehicle. The freight company is liable to restore the truck, continue to lease the truck during the remaining lease period, and pay the full lease payment for the period. So if the truck is not being used properly, it was overloaded against the terms and conditions of use of that particular truck. So any damage which was caused by misuse of that asset will be the responsibility of the lessee, and lessee will repair the asset, and during the time when the asset is not in the beneficial use of the lessee, even in those times the lessee will be paying the rentals to the Islamic financial institution. And if the usufruct of the leased asset is impaired wholly or partially as a result of natural cause without any negligence of the lessee, the lessor shall be responsible for such losses. The rental charges payable from the lessee during the restoration period shall be waived. But if the loss to the asset was not because of the lessee's misuse, or there was no negligence or misconduct or misuse by the lessee, and the causes were natural or unavoidable under the circumstances, so in that case, to restore the usufruct of the asset will be the responsibility of the owner, that is the lessor, and during that time period when the usufruct is being restored, the rental charges will not be paid by the client, and the maintenance expenses of leased asset shall be borne by the lessor. For example, expenses related to wear and tear and natural causes which are not due to the lessee's misconduct or negligence. Non-maintenance of such asset may render the contract void. So the maintenance expenses and any other expenses because of the wear and tear or because of the normal use of that asset, they are the responsibility of the lessor. And any operational maintenance and expenses relating to the usage of the leased asset shall be borne by the lessee, who acts as a fiduciary or under the trust relationship to safeguard the interest of the lessor. And when major maintenance of the leased asset is delegated to the lessee, all costs incurred for such maintenance shall be reimbursed by the lessor. And when there was a major repair due for that particular asset, and the lessor appoints the lessee to get the asset repaired, so during that time period, the lease payment or the rental payment, they will not be paid to the Islamic financial institution, and also any cost to repair or to restore the usufruct will be charged to the lessor, being the owner of that asset. And the lessor may agree with the lessee that the lessee bears the full cost, provided that the cost is reimbursable from the lessor. And at the same time, if any insurance cost which is the responsibility of the lessor, and it is delegated to the lessee, that the lessee will arrange an insurance arrangement or a takaful arrangement, provided that the cost of the takaful will be paid or reimbursed by the lessor to the lessee. A leased asset may be subleased to a third party unless it is stated otherwise in the primary lease contract. If the client has leased an asset and the client want to sublease it to any third party, but the ijara agreement states that the subject of that agreement, that is the asset, cannot be leased as a sublease, so the client has no right to sublease it. But if it is not mentioned into the contract, and or if it is mentioned into the contract that the client can sublease the asset to any third party, in that case the client will inform the owner or the lessor and can sublease the asset to any third party. And the sublease shall be valid for the period not exceeding the tenure of the primary lease contract. So the primary lease contract should be longer than the sublease contract. If the primary lease contract was for 10 years, the sublease contract should be any number of days less than the 10 years. The rental payment for the asset that is subleased may be the same amount, higher or lower, payable on the spot or on a deferred basis, unless it is stated otherwise in the primary lease contract. So there can be different arrangements for the payment of the rental amount. It can be more than the initial contract. The rental charges for the sublease contract can be higher, it can be lower, or any arrangement is possible if it is allowed. This illustration will further clarify the concept of sublease of asset, that a company entered into a lease agreement on an office building with an Islamic financial institution and planned to sublease the office to its subsidiaries. So the agreement is between the company and the Islamic financial institution, but the company plans to sublease the asset to its subsidiary. A provision in the agreement allows for subleasing provided that the tenant activities are Sharia compliant. Upon assessment, the IFI is satisfied that the tenant activities are Sharia compliant, thus the company's plan can be executed. Relevant terms and conditions in the agreement that will safeguard the lessor's interest apply to the sublease agreement as well. So in case of a sublease agreement, the lessor will make sure in the sublease agreement the asset is not going to be used in any haram activity. It should be a Sharia compliant activity. So when the Islamic financial institution makes sure that the asset will be used for a Sharia compliant activity, so in that case the asset can be subleased to any third party. And the modes of transfer of the leased asset in ijara muntahiya bit tamlik may be by way of a gift or sale of the leased asset. So the ownership can be transferred to the client at the end of the lease contract, and there might be the case of sale of the asset, or it might be gifted to the client. And the ownership of the leased asset shall be transferred to the lessee by executing a sale contract of the asset as promised or at any time during the lease period. And during the lease period, at any time, the asset can be sold to the client or with the consent of the client to any third party. And the transfer of the leased asset may be effected in the form of a gift to the lessee upon fulfillment of the conditions that all ijara installments are fully settled. So when the ijara contract is completed, all the installments due or the ijara payments they were due from the client, they have been paid. So in that case, the asset can be gifted or it can be sold to the client. And in today's lecture, we discussed various points regarding the ijara contract, that is the background of ijara contract and different applications of ijara contract, particularly in the property financing and vehicle financing, which are the most popular modes of financing under the Islamic financial system. And whereas project financing, personal financing, and structured financing, they are not as popular as the property financing and vehicle financing. And we also discussed the definitions and types of ijara, and all that is the types. You do remember that there can be a contract of selling of services, and there can be an ijara contract for hiring of for leasing of assets, and the assets can be tangible and non-tangible. Non-tangible in the form of trademarks, patents, or the brand names. And then we discuss the Sharia legitimacy, getting some guidance from Quran where the hiring of services was mentioned, and also in Sunnah where hiring of services and leasing of asset, both they were mentioned. And also there was a consensus of jurists about the validity of an ijara agreement. And we also studied or discussed some features of ijara contract, that is usufruct and services, assets for ijara, what are the assets that qualify for an ijara agreement, and ownership rights and liabilities of the lessor and the lessee. And these points, that is utilization of leased asset, the lease period, the rental amount and payment, we will be discussing in our next lecture. So until the next lecture, Assalamu alaikum, Allah Hafiz.